I legit have my heater on.
I know.
It's
Isn't this
what a
weather?
weird. And it's supposed to be
In my
90
office.
tomorrow.
Is it?
I'm sorry, not tomorrow. I'm sorry. No, I have no brain. Next week.
That's okay,
Next
though. I
week.
mean, summer.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, Callie. It's like 96 all next
Oh,
week.
she didn't believe you. She had to check her app.
Well, I'm
Mhm.
just like, oh, is it going to rain again?
Well, today is the first day that feels like actual summer vacation like we had a little bit last week. Wait, when's your last day, Meg?
Tomorrow.
Oh god. Okay.
Yeah.
So my uh, I'm so grouchy about it all cuz I can just see how my summer's going to go. Today I had to wake up at 6:10 so I could wake my child up so that I could drive him to lifting at 7. I had to pick him up at 9. I had to take another child to a play date at 11:30. I had to
Yes.
come home. This is a nice break, but at some point my son better get on his scooter and drive to his buddy's house cuz they're giving him a ride to the next round of football. Then I don't have to pick up my kid from the play date. Then the one kid that has been like on a book for the last 3 days cuz I won't entertain him wants to go get sunglasses or something. So I'm going to go do that, and then I have to take another kid to look like I don't have more than an hour 10 minutes before I'm on to the next. And so it's just, I find I cannot get into, like, I can't walk the dog. I can't figure out
No.
like and I need
No.
to get on board with it. Although every week it's going to be a slightly different schedule. But,
I hate those I hate it when,
uh,
yes.
and it's
I,
like, and then I'm going to go and the house is a disaster because there's so many people home. You know, when you have those days when you're like, when can I address all of this? And it's like October.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to sit
Yes.
with this.
Yes. Seriously. Right.
Okay.
Anyways.
Anyways, let's get started on the actual episode because none of my bitching and moaning is going to make it. Welcome to Just for Moms. I'm Charlotte.
I'm Caitlin.
I'm Megan.
And I'm Callie.
We are regular moms
Talking about regular stuff like
Aging,
parenthood,
work-life balance
and figuring out what's for dinner again.
a no judgment zone to talk, laugh,
And maybe cry about all the things women think about on a daily basis.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. This is Just for Moms. We're episode 24, something like that.
5, maybe?
25.
Maybe
Wow.
even, which is exciting. We're now, we're recording. I promise you guys we're recording in the summer. It's so cold, but this will air sometime in July. And I was looking ahead today. I was saying before we started that today is sort of our first official day when everyone's home and we're just trying to figure out summer. And I was thinking ahead because we're going to the beach for the 4th of July and then we're going to go back in August. And so I was wondering, do you guys have a favorite like beach gadget, beach hack? Like, is there something that has just helped you? We all live on the beach. What are some things that you guys have that just make your life easier on the beach? Callie, I feel like this is in your wheelhouse. You must have a bunch of things.
Yeah, we're not huge beach people, but I do love gadgets. So my big thing is camp towels. So these are like microfiber towels. You can get them in various sizes, but they're really thin and they fold up super tiny because like beach towels are huge. And if you're going to the beach and you know it's fine, but like I keep camp towels stashed like in my kids' go bags, like in my trunk, because inevitably you always end up at the beach or the kid ends up in the splash pad or they're wet and they're so tiny that they don't take up space. So those are like my favorite, just kind of like summer, you're going to be outside type of thing.
Did you share something recently that was like a special sponge or a thing to get sand off? Was that you
Oh,
or was
sand
that another?
screen. Yeah. I don't know if it was, I mean, I've talked about it. I haven't recently. Yeah, sand screen. They're like these little bags that are filled with like a talc powder. But like
Talcum
maybe,
powder. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but maybe it's not, whatever one is like the one that's safe for the coral reefs. I
right.
forget. And it's in a little thing and you use it to get the sand off your feet, which is pretty nice too. Yeah.
Okay. Caitlin, you're going to the beach. Do you have any
Yeah.
things that you're bringing? Any
Um,
tips or tricks?
I mean, like the beaches up in New England usually you can't bring glass on the beach. So, as someone who enjoys a nice, crisp glass of wine, that is like a problem. So, you can't bring a bottle either on the beach. And like I've been caught and they take it away. Uh, but they make Yetis for wine bottles that hold an entire bottle of wine. And I think it's fantastic. And you just pour it in there and it keeps it cold and has nothing to do with my children or motherhood, but
I mean, a
it's my
little.
hack.
It helps.
Mhm. I bring it everywhere. Just the other day, I was at a graduation party and pulled it out of my bag, and someone was like, "What is that?" I was like, "It's my bottle of wine. It can't break. It can't leak."
That's
So
smart. I
yeah.
have to look into that. What
Mhm.
about you,
I like
Meg?
it.
I love the umbrella stand with like the anchor in the bottom where you like twist it and turn it so it
Mm.
goes, you know, not just the stick. It has like the anchor that you have to like turn and turn and turn because I feel like it does get windy, you know, if we go to Cape Cod and have to bring the umbrella. And then I feel like are Christmas tree shops still around? Not really, right?
No.
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 Okay.
R.I.P.
Yeah. But I still have stuff in our garage. I have those like little table trays. Same thing. It has a little anchor in the bottom to put snacks on top. And then there's also like one for a drink for Caitlin's drink. Same thing. And then
I've
for the
never done the table, but I feel like
no.
that would be really helpful. I don't know why we
Yeah.
haven't, but I think that's a good call.
Yes, especially with the sand, you know, I feel like you always have one child that can't deal with any sand. And then the last one that I had when my kids were younger, they're older now, were the chairs that like flipped over the top and it almost had like a mini awning umbrella to it. And it
Yes.
had like a cup holder. I feel like I got those at Bed Bath and Beyond, but I remember when my kids were younger, those were my lifesaver because they're always like, "It's so hot." And I'd be like, "Not anymore." And then pull the little top over it, you know?
Yeah, those are a good call. Our main experience with like legit beach life is when we go to the Jersey Shore and see my sister because those beaches are just beautiful and it's just all we do. So the things I've learned from her, she has first of all a wagon is key. We do have a wagon up here, but she has a wagon that has sort of big wide wheels which are really nice on the softer sand. Like our wagon I bring to the flea market sometimes and it's fine on our sand in Connecticut, but for big soft sand, hers is great. And then I think it's new in the last couple of years. Have you seen those umbrellas that there's two types that we see a lot of. The one she has, it has a center pole and then it has four corners that are anchored down just by filling them with sand. Have you seen those
Mhm.
Mm.
ones?
Yeah.
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 I think that's the Sun Ninja. Is that what you're talking about?
Maybe. And
Yeah,
they
that's
don't
what we have.
even no matter how windy it gets, it's pretty rare that that moves. And to your point about the anchor, the third thing that we now have is like a mini spade, like a mini shovel. So it's a legit metal shovel, but it's sort of short with that actual shovel handle. And so we use that. If the kids are antsy, you can just dig a big hole for them. But that's what we use to anchor her umbrella is just dig a big hole and then you lock it in with a bucket of water or something. But those are three things that I've learned. The other umbrella that she doesn't have you seen the one that is just an arc and then there's like a flag, it just blows in the wind?
Yeah, we have that. I feel like last summer my mom said she was like, "I'm sending this back after we used it for 2 days." I like the one that you just described. We have so many little kids when we go on family vacations. Someone's bound to need a nap or just to lay down. And the one that's it's like a half tent, right? You're talking about? Because we
Yeah, I
can
mean
crawl
it's
inside of ours and it has like a floor area.
yeah, it's the one that she has. Yeah, there's definitely no floor. It's
Or
just
is yours
for
like a canopy?
it's a canopy, but the
Okay.
four corners have little pockets to fill with sand, and so it just is better anchored. And then the other one that they have, it's just a flexible rod with a big piece of like sail fabric on it. And so if it's a really windy day, that fabric is always blowing, but it'll never blow away, which is nice. But I'm with you. It feels like it's sort of, I don't know, it's a moving target. If there's no wind, you're dead.
I thought of something that I was aside from my wine. Um, we usually, all of us, my siblings and everybody brings some sort of portable fan, whether it's a little fan that goes on a stroller or my sister has it's like the size of my laptop probably, fan that's powered, you charge it. And so again, a kid needs to take a nap, somebody is overheating, you just turn on the little fan and then cool off.
Yeah.
I'm really happy my kids are older whenever I go to the beach.
I
It's
think
such
that's
a
sort of
thing.
why my answer is like we're not huge like
Yeah.
beach people with children in diapers. Like that to me,
No.
Ugh.
I'm just like we're just not in that. We'll go for like a half hour or whatever, but we're just we're not.
Especially if the beach doesn't when my kids were really little, we had access to, like, a beach area that had a little snack bar and a actual locker room and actual lockers and showers, and it made it a lot easier when the kids were little because
Yeah.
just the weight of sand that accumulates in a bathing suit bottom, I don't know how that works.
No.
I don't understand either.
Okay, let's move on to mom fails. Do any of you have any big ones? Does anyone wanna go first? Everyone filled it in. Meg, do you wanna go first?
Yes. So, school is ending for my family tomorrow. And I just was thinking to myself, I don't know if I filled out that teacher survey for my youngest. And I missed it. I think it was sent in like March or April. So I emailed the principal and was just like, hey, I think I missed it. Sorry, but this is like kind of who my son likes. This is who my daughter's had her too, blah, blah, blah. And of course, he's like, you missed it back in March, April. I'm like, okay, fine, fair enough. Mom fail. My bad, missed the email. But then I'm thinking in my head, you know what? I really just don't care because I filled it out so many years and my kids never got who I clicked on. So, you know what? Do they even really like go like are what parents say and request? Do they really look at it?
They don't even
No.
ask us. I was thinking you meant that, like, school board wide survey that we got 17 reminders, but it's very big. I mean, it's for how do you feel like the state of
Oh,
education in
Oh,
Fairfield
like the
County is or
yeah.
something.
This
yeah,
is
like the
just for
climate.
like teachers. It's just a
Oh my
teacher
god.
We don't do that.
request. It doesn't mean you get the person, but you can kind of like click and write it in or it's like a survey. I shouldn't say write. It's on the computer. And I've done it in years past and I was like thinking the other day I'm like, "Oh boy, did I miss that?" I missed it. It was a fail, but like I said, I don't even think it really matters because no one ever listened to what I clicked on in the years past.
No.
So,
I'm amazed they ask because it only stands to piss people off.
yes, yeah, for sure.
Well,
Wow.
well, we have to write a letter. If you want to have any kind of request, and in that letter, you cannot specify any teacher's name. You just have to write down what type of child or what type of learner your child is, what type of environment they work best in. And it's so vague. And this year I just straight up wrote the two teachers that I wanted my child to have. And the principal wrote back and was like, you're not allowed to do that. I'm like, but now you know.
Yeah,
So we'll just leave that
good
there.
for you. That's the way to do it. Oh well.
Yeah, we don't even I guess we bring it I've sort of we it comes up a little bit in spring conferences. Sometimes they ask. And my kids' elementary school, it's so small, there's only 2 sections, which is sort of wild, but I don't know. All the teachers are pretty good. I'm usually looking to keep an eye out on like the peer dynamics. That's what I will mention is, Arthur has a couple of friends that he deeply loves, but he deeply makes bad choices when he's with them. And so I flag that. I think it might be better if they're in separate classes.
Fair enough.
Yeah. It's in your best interest too, Mrs. Jones. Callie, do you have a mom fail?
Yes, so we're already on summer break over here, and my son had his first camp of the summer this week, and he has an inhaler. Doesn't need it very often, but we have to send it. And I forgot that, of course, we have like 10 inhalers, but of course, I need the one in the box with the prescription number, and I didn't have it on Monday morning. And luckily, I could do a super quick pickup at CVS, and I was worried they were going to like send him away, and I was going to have, but they didn't. I was able to run and get it. And so, but that was my mom fail that I totally forgot to get his inhaler for camp.
Caitlin, what's yours?
Well, let's see. I actually had to ask my husband about this, and he's like, "What did we do wrong?" Like, even him, including himself. We let our toddler not only have a blue frosted cupcake, which I just was not there for. I didn't have to witness, but he said that was his fail. Like, why did I let her eat that? Everything was blue, herself, the clothes, the little table that she sits at. But then we went to, because we didn't learn our lesson, we were at my nephew's graduation party. Have you guys ever had Avery soda?
I don't think
Yes.
so.
It's here, it's made in Connecticut, and they have, everything from birch beer to blue raspberry. Now, my children are not allowed to have soda. However, she got her hands on a little blue soda. And for every single photo we tried to take for the family, for graduation for my nephew. She has like just a giant blue mustache and beard. And she was
I
off the
mean,
walls.
I think
Yeah.
that's sort of amazing. But that blue
Yeah.
is with you for hours.
Yes.
Forever.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then
Ever
her
and ever.
Yep. And then her poop was like neon
Yeah.
green the next day, and she was screaming.
Yep.
Because you forget what
Yeah.
they've eaten, and then that it happens, and
Yep.
you
Yes.
remember. But I always forget.
And then
When
it's in
Tate,
their
wi-
teeth.
yeah, yes. When Tate turned 2, I got a cake at Big Y, which are like the best cakes ever. And I didn't realize they were going to ask me 8 million questions. I was like, please just give me a cake. And they're like, what color? Decoration? I was like, I don't know, blue. Like, it's a boy. I don't know. I didn't realize that it was like and then she asked, oh, what kind of blue? And I was like,
Boy.
I don't know, regular blue. I'm like, my baby's crying. I'm like, just give me cake. It was the really blue frosting, and everyone's poop was, and everybody was horrified that their poop was like green blue for like a day or two. Like each child had their own individual meltdown about it, and I won't be doing that again. No.
That is funny.
Yeah.
My mom fail is I would love to be able to blame my kid because my kid is old enough to know better. But like, what is the definition of insanity? Is expecting a different. Like, I
Doing
also
the
know
same thing, and expecting different
a
results.
different result. So I know my child. My child started football. My child's cleats don't fit. We've known this for weeks. And I said weeks ago when we went to I think the Trumbull Mall to look for cleats, and none of those sports stores had cleats. And I was like, well, that's okay. We still have a few weeks. Just tell me what you need. And I'd rather order online anyway. It's cheaper. You can get what you want. Let's just do that. Cut to yesterday, and he needs his cleats at 1:00 in the afternoon. And so we're going to the sporting goods store around the corner. So I'm already annoyed because it's like we're going to be paying 2x. He's like, well, that's where we always go. And I'm like, that's because you always forget and your dad deals with it. And this is the closest place. But I said, that's fine. So I go in. He is now a size like 14. So they don't have, like, of course they make cleats that big because football is for giant humans, but not at the like local Westport athletic store. So we have to order cleats, and they'll be here, I think Thursday, they said. But he has 5 hours of football the next few days that he's just in his little squeezed into his cleats. So it's sort of his problem. But I'm just annoyed because it's like you knew when you could see it coming,
Mhm.
and I should have known better. And I didn't do it. So it's on both of us. But that was my mom fail for the week. What
That
can you do?
happens
I
all
know.
the time.
Okay,
Same.
moving into our topic. We touched on this a little bit in episode 12. We were talking about like keeping our kids entertained and structured versus unstructured. But today we wanted to talk specifically about kind of arts and crafts with summer upon us. I think all of us are scrambling to keep our kids entertained. I personally just have an affinity for arts and crafts specifically, and I did do a little research to prove my theories. I think all of us have a background with preschoolers. We've had our own kids. A few of us have actually worked with preschoolers. So there's no question that arts and crafts is not only fun for kids, but it really is an incredible learning opportunity. So there's some obvious like development of fine motor skills. Certainly you can teach shapes and colors. It helps with pattern recognition, spatial awareness. It builds resilience, which I think some of us don't think about. Yeah, like how many times have you screwed up a project and you just have to make it work or start again or figure it out? It encourages critical thinking because you have to sort of plan ahead and figure out what steps you're going to take to get from step 1 to step 5. And then I think, one of the reasons I love is that I think it just builds your self-esteem. There's nothing more satisfying than finishing an art project. I mean, Caitlin, you do watercolors as an adult, and I suspect, can you relate to all of these things?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not like I'm just making a treat for somebody. There's just so many different levels to why I do it and what I enjoy about it and how I feel after I do it. And yeah, I get it.
Yeah. So I think there's real benefits. So some of the statistics that I came up with were students with access to arts education are 5 times less likely to drop out of school, 4 times more likely to be recognized for academic achievement, 3 times more likely to pursue a bachelor's degree. And then low income students with access to arts education are 2 times more likely to graduate from college. So it's such a nice thing to keep in mind. this is from Forbes, so that's a legit source. According to a new study, people's engagement with creating art and crafting for at least a year gave them a greater sense of life being worthwhile and better life satisfaction than employment. So, again, if adults are feeling all these benefits, can imagine what our little kiddos can feel about this. However, I think what a lot of parents might experience and what we certainly have experienced is that art can be messy, it can be expensive, it can be a commitment to set something up. It can be, I mean, it's loaded because setting up an arts and crafts project can come with all sorts of nonsense. And so, what we wanted to do is talk a little bit about arts and crafts specifically that we have done with our kids over the years that either don't require a lot of prep, don't require a lot of materials, don't have sort of the expectation that you are there like doing the project because that's worth nothing if you have to be there doing it too. So I have a few ideas, but I also feel like I've been talking a lot. Caitlin, what are some ideas or things that, I mean, you have Arbor, so you're her sort of homeschool teacher right now. What, and I know you've talked in the past about things you can't do with Arbor because she will make a disaster, throw it, or make a mess. So have you found ways to navigate arts and crafts with either your older girls or with Arbor that are fun for everyone and not they don't end in tears?
Well, it's funny because I asked my girls were doing crafts all morning actually because I said there's no TV. We're second day of summer. We're not just gonna veg out. And my middle child is so creative that she comes up with a lot of the crafts that anyone does in the house. And I'll go off of what she has done later on with Arbor. So one of the things that I mentioned in another episode, Arbor's attention span is very small. So like if we're gonna do a craft, I know like I got 5 minutes and then she wants to move on. I'll outline something in glue and let her put pom-poms on it, or I'll outline something in glue and let her put beads on it, and just that keeps her contained and it makes a cool picture. And then if I throw it out, I don't care. But handprint art, I would say, is the most popular thing I've done with my kids over the years. You could go to the Dollar Tree and buy their canvases are so inexpensive, and there's 8 million things you can make with a handprint. Yes, it is messy, but I mean, you just got to have baby wipes ready to go to wipe their little hand off when they're done. And that's my favorite thing to do. I did bring a craft Eileen made this morning that I wanted to show you guys though. So she's like, Mommy, I need some plastic spoons and tape, and I already have an Easter egg, and then possibly some beans or beads.
Is it a
Or rice.
maraca?
Yep.
Yeah, it is a maraca.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
And it is actually a cat maraca.
Oh.
And
Cute.
she used 2 spoons, an Easter egg. We'll show it on our stories in case anyone wants to. But I was like, where did you come up with this? I don't remember what she said. Maybe she was watching Gabby's Dollhouse, but this is the kind of stuff she does. And then she plays with Arbor and she leads the whole craft. So it's
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was just looking back over, so when COVID happened, Arthur was in preschool. And so he didn't really have any sort of online. I mean, I think the teachers tried, but they were learning how to like log into a computer. And it just, for many reasons, it didn't work. And so the other guys were sort of settled. And so I just, every night, I would just pop on Pinterest and find 2 or 3 things. And, you know, I didn't want to hit him over the head with it, but every day we did a couple activities that were really easy to set up and had a big bang for their buck. And I have a couple highlights on my Instagram that I had totally forgotten about. And I sat there with Arthur, who's now 10, looking at 4-year-old Arthur. You know, the girls were included. And that was one of the ones that we had made because I think we had Easter during COVID. So there were a couple of Easter. But it was, first of all, I was like weeping onto my phone. Like you just forget listening to his little voice and talking about it. But I also, like, Pinterest is a godsend for all of these things because like none of us have original ideas. I mean, we might tweak them and hack them, but I mean, that's where my older kids are now on Pinterest and they get ideas. So it's
awesome.
Megan, what are some arts and crafts? I know how you feel about kinetic sand, but what are some
Yes.
other arts and crafts in your house?
So, to be honest with you, two of mine love just painting seashells and rocks. It's
Right.
we have so many in our garden. They just and I even growing up, I did it as a kid, and my parents still have it in their gardens. Another one that we love in our house is the potato stamps,
Ah,
where you can create a heart. Or I'm very basic with that. I'm not. So the potato stamps that you carve out a shape and then you dip it in the paint, and you could just get,
Wait a minute. I have to pause. How
yes.
you cut it? How do you do this?
So you have to cut the potato in half, and then you have to create the shape to stick out on one half.
How do you do that?
Uh,
You carve it.
yes, but
like a paring knife and just cut around. Yeah.
and you
Okay.
know what, Charlotte, when you said the COVID thing, this is something that I did and posted, same thing. And we can share all these on our page too for the summer for our listeners and followers. But yeah, your girls would love that one, Caitlin.
Yeah, I'm just picturing Arbor could entertain her for a while.
And you
Yeah,
can also make that same stamp with just cardboard. So
right.
you can cut out the same shape. It probably would work with just a single layer of cardboard, but if you put like 3 hearts, cut out a heart from cardboard and put like 3, it's it's also a stamp if you don't want to get into carving on a potato. But like, what a good way to use old potatoes. I just threw away a
Uh-huh.
bag because
Yes,
they were like, I
yes,
should have planted them.
yes.
But I love that idea. That's cool.
And
Yeah.
then pasta, making necklaces out of pasta. We do that a lot. Bracelets, necklaces. Homemade Play-Doh, which is, I know, a touchy subject, but maybe you could do it on the deck outside. Oh, another one. My Gianna is 12, and she's very much into needlepoint.
I love that.
So they have kits on Amazon, and then there's, more expensive kits that you can buy from different businesses out there. But needlepoint is a big one. And then I love the giant coloring books or coloring banners that you can just
Yes.
set on the floor in the kitchen. And every morning they can sit there and color away. I know those are really big in our house. Chalk in the driveway, that can keep them quiet for a good hour. And then another one is seashells, and I don't feel like I feel like she has done it with rocks too. Just making necklaces, buying a little drill on Amazon that you can make little holes through
Mhm.
the pieces and then create your own jewelry. And I would say I loved crafts growing up. I still love them. I don't put as much time into them as I'd like, but when the kids want to do them, same thing. I feel like we go on Pinterest and I'll be like, crafts for an 8-year-old, and fun things will come up. But I feel like that's pretty much the ones. And basic stickers too. If you just get
Oh,
like the sticker books and the Melissa and Doug faces, even where they make the face, stuff like that. It's just classic, fun for them. And
Right.
honestly, you set them up and then you step away. And I feel like they'll go for hopefully, solid, let's hope 45 minutes, maybe half an hour, depending on their age. I know toddlers, the attention span is a little different, but it grows every year, I feel like.
Have I shared it? I probably have, and you're like, "Yeah, Charlotte, we know." I heard a speaker years ago, and it's like the greatest little piece of advice. She said it takes kids up to an hour to get into that good play when they're like gone. You know that, and she said as adults, we often just get in the way because when they're restless to start, whether it's a play date or an activity that we put out, we get frustrated and we pick it up too quickly. And she was like, "You just have to power through that sort of awkward time when they're either complaining or trying, my kids will have play dates and they'll spend the first hour like figuring out snacks and it's like go get
Right.
but I tell myself that because I think in the summer especially, we can't expect to lay out a project and then have them immediately get sucked into it. And so I love the idea of having some of these sort of accessible throughout the day. Obviously paint you'd have to keep an eye on, but like we love those giant coloring posters too. And you can also just get a roll of butcher block paper or drop cloth paper and have that laid out. And then we would use those circle stickers that you'll see at like yard sales or something, you can get a pack of those, like 500 of them for nothing. And they're just colorful circles. But even
Mhm.
those, my kids would have fun making patterns with and playing. And if you want to make it more educational, you can write their name and they can put the stickers on their name. So there's all sorts of ways as adults to sort of help them level up a little bit. But I also just think creating a space for them just to go to whenever they need, like an arts and crafts area. I mean, I loved having it, but I think in the summer, that's something that I really recommend. And it doesn't have to be much. I mean, it could
No.
be, I love your idea of shells. That's something we can all get to. And if your kids are too old to be working with paint, then give them chalk or give them
Yeah.
watercolor paint
Yeah.
or, you know,
Yeah. Or you can even use markers or crayons on the shells and the rocks, it
sure.
depends. Yeah.
Yeah. Callie, you probably have a bunch, but you do have littles. So how do you navigate arts and crafts with littles that probably do like eat stuff and need supervision?
Yeah, the hardest part for arts and crafts with us is it's the age gap. I mean, having a 2-year-old, and not that Opal is so, I mean, she's old enough now that she's pulling up onto tables if they're doing something, at a level where she can get into it. So that's been the hardest part for me. So where we really are with arts and crafts right now is sort of what you were just talking about. We have a handful. I've like really just pared back how much arts and crafts we have, and we really just stick to the fundamentals, and it tends to be more kind of just out that they can use it when they want, and we don't do a ton of like the set activities. We have some, like right now this summer my kids are with a nanny 3 days a week, so I'll set up activities when they're with them because they can take the older two and go and do an activity. But for like our basic arts and crafts, so there's always paper available to everybody, that's fine. And then we always have some type of item that can mark with, whether it's crayons or pencils, or I really like pencils. I find that they're like kind of good for all the ages. My 2-year-old doesn't try to eat them, and like I don't know, it's like good in between. Um, Less than markers. Can't really like draw on the table as much, so we do that. And then we always have cardboard available. My kids do so much with cardboard, whether I just leave the boxes out. Sometimes I'll cut strips of them into so they can create little things, they can create big things. I follow this woman on Substack. Her account is called Art is Play. And my son will create like whole homes with cardboard all the time. But she had this great idea where she just collected shoebox type boxes for a long time. And I think she used to own like an art studio for kids. And then she would glue them all like really tall. So they kind of looked like a condominium or an apartment. And she's like, she would just give them to the kids. And she was like, they would spend weeks just like filling each room. Sometimes it was a supermarket and sometimes it was a whole whatever, a cruise ship. It was all these different things. So we do so much with cardboard. And then we have a few things. So I have like an art cabinet. This is how we deal with it with the little kids. I have an art cabinet in the playroom, and paper and then marking items are always available. And then I have 2 drawers that have child-proof locks on them that my 4-year-old and my 6-year-old can open. So they can go in there, but my 2-year-old cannot get in. So then we have glue and scissors in one. And then we have paint is the other thing that I offer. And I stick to watercolor paint. I find 2-year-old can do the watercolor paint. The older kids love them. I feel like they're always really beautiful. They're so easy to clean up. All you need is water to use them. They don't end up somehow everywhere. So we kind of like are exclusively watercolor. And then that's really it. And I mean, down the road, I would love to be able to have more. Growing up, like I grew up in a really artistic family. I have multiple family members that are like artists as like a profession. We had like an entire art room growing up where you could just go in and like make stuff. So I mean, as the kids get older, I'm sure we will add things to the collection, but I really like to think about the open-ended stuff. I think it's fun to sit down and have little projects. But especially with 4 running around, like the like reality of me sitting down and sort of like leading this one project that all 4 ages can actively do is not super realistic. So I try to think of more of the open-ended stuff that like everybody can do it in their own way.
But I think even because I remember those stages and you're planning it with the lowest common denominator in mind. And
Always, yeah.
even with like the most basic of materials, something as simple as taping a crayon or a marker to the end of a stick or
Mhm.
a broom post and or a broomstick and having them draw like giant pictures on the floor, like that's a way to take exactly the same materials that you have out, but add such a fun novelty. My kids would have so much fun painting with sort of unpredictable objects. So I go to the dollar store and get like a loofah sponge or one of those rubber brushes that you would use on a grill and just let them kind of have fun with all that tactile texture. And you don't need anything else. You can use watercolor paint and
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah, that's
Um,
a fun idea. We always have the big rolls of just white paper, and
yes.
sometimes I will just like you said, I just roll it out and just, like, have at it, but that would be a fun thing to do with, like, different
And even those
materials.
giant rolls, I've with minimal grown-up prep, like, you could even just do a little squiggle on it and then have the kids go in and color in the squiggle, whether it's with
Mhm,
chalk or crayons or I think there's ways to take these very basic things and make them new and interesting, so it's not like the same thing every day, even though you're
mhm.
not bringing in new materials and stuff.
Yeah,
Um
usually it takes the smallest little tweak, even just doing it
Totally.
outside, or you know what I mean, or making it smaller, making it big, like you said.
I was looking back at some of the stuff I did with Arthur, and I had forgotten how just all in he was for trucks and the number of activities we were able to come up with. And I was trying to be a little bit more academic, but like I would write his name or I would write his name lightly and then he would go back over it darker. And for a little kid, that's really great practice because they have to press down with their muscles. And then he would drive his trucks over his name. And we were doing this on a big piece of butcher block paper. We did one activity. I mean, we did a lot of activities where it was just like, let's make a maze all over the house and then drive your trucks on it. I mean,
Mhm.
it was
Yeah.
so simple. And then like getting them off of the tables for my kids was sort of a magic secret trick, like putting painter's tape on the wall that they could then drive their trucks on or doing it on the floor. And the same goes for art, like tape that big giant paper to the wall. I don't know if they have a playroom, like tape it. If you have one of those like low eaves, like tape it to the ceiling, things like that, just like put things on its edge. And for kids can be really sort of magical and wonderful. Meg, you mentioned homemade Play-Doh. The
Yes.
recipe that we used was basically like flour, salt, and water. And I, when that dries, it's pretty easy to get off. Like to your
Yes.
point, it's not unlike the Play-Doh that you buy over the counter. I
That
found that that
ruins the
was,
rug. Like
yeah,
Play-Doh ruins the rug. It's
Yes.
yeah,
just
like
Yeah.
you really won't get that Play-Doh off. But
mm-mm.
I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know that my kids ever challenged me, but I agree, homemade
Yeah.
Play-Doh because you can make it the night before and it'll keep for a week.
Mhm.
Yes.
Um, My kids went crazy, and I can't remember at what age we started, but with just a big tray of baking soda and then some vinegar, we would put little vinegar with food coloring, and then they would use droppers. And so it was really like having them coordinate the medicine droppers, and then you drop the vinegar onto the baking soda and it bubbles.
Yes.
They could sit and do that
Yes.
forever. And we did it, you can do it outside, but it's not that messy. Like it's
Yes.
baking soda. So if it gets everywhere, you just wipe it up. And they
Mhm.
loved that.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
I
Well,
would,
when you're done, I wanted to ask you guys if you've done one craft when you're done.
okay. I There were two things that I would not hesitate to just squirt right onto the table or do on a cookie sheet, and I found my kids were entertained. First thing was shaving cream because
Uh,
it's pretty easy to clean up, and I did it in the classroom on their desks. I did it with my kids, like, and you can do it inside, outside. I would also bring out like pudding and do that like that. I probably wouldn't smack on the table, but there's something really fun and novel about, and it's just like finger painting. So you have to put your hygiene ick aside a little bit, but it was just, I mean, that's what, a 75 cents box of pudding that you just put out for them. And I don't know, I think 15-20 minutes of activity is it's about as good as you can get, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, I agree with you, Callie. Cardboard is another thing. Um, my kids, it depends on where you live, and if it's baking hot, you can't do it. My kids would paint outside with just paintbrushes and water on our patio pavers
Mhm.
or on the driveway, because when you get it wet, it's a darker color. They would
Yeah.
do that
yeah.
for hours.
Well,
Yeah.
And
like you
With
that,
could paint your
chalk.
chalk too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
That's
we draw a
huge.
picture with chalk and then we paint over
Yeah.
it and spread
yes,
it and
all of the above. And then I feel like you've talked about this, Callie, the when you put painter's tape on, like you can put it on their wrist, you can just have it and then they can just go and look around for a scavenger hunt and like stick things to it. You can
Yeah.
do the same thing on a piece of paper. The wrist is cute for little kids, but that
Yeah.
That's pretty fun if
Contact
you
paper is one that, like, I keep in
Yes.
my office, but, like, you can do so many amazing things with because it's just sticky. I mean, you can tape it to the wall, sticky side up, and let your younger kid put stuff, or older kids, I'll let them go out and, like, collect leaves or whatever.
Yeah.
Contact paper is another great one to have in your
Yeah. I mean,
arsenal.
And then you
painter's
could
tape also with little ones, you could just put it
Yes.
all like little
Oh,
things
I
all
use
over and they'll
Pinterest tape so much. Yeah.
you can elevate your leaves stuck to the paper. I had this written down and
Yes.
forgot about it, but my kids like to make like scenes with nature. So they'll during the fall we go get leaves and then they make leaf people and they
Mhm.
get flowers from outside or grass or sticks and just make these whole scenes. And we'll do it on old paper bags. Like, we get a lot of grocery delivery lately is coming in a paper bag. And so I save them all and then I cut it out like it's a piece of paper and just
Yep.
let them go to town on it. And then you just throw all the nature in the trash when you're done.
Yeah. Those paper shopping bags are money. Do not throw them away if you have
No,
Yeah.
we'll
kids.
cut
Keep
them
them.
all up.
They can be a drop cloth, they can be paper. You could roll them up and make sort of de facto tubes that they could build with. That is huge.
Mhm.
Um, two other things that I remember doing with my kids that was just sort of fun and novel is we filled squirt guns with colorful water. I think we just use water and food coloring and let them squirt. I think we were maybe squirting an old sheet or t-shirts, but that was maybe even paper, and I don't think it like there was a lot of color residue left behind, but again, the novelty of going out back and you like watching how the colors mixed. It was just and you get the what, $1 squirt guns from
Yeah.
wherever.
Yeah.
We did that. And then Q-tips are another tool that most people have on hand that are really good for kids for daubing or painting or whatever. So that's another. I was trying to think of like what are ways to engage with arts and crafts that don't require, we all mentioned things that had very few materials, but like everyone doesn't have a water gun at home and everyone may not have contact paper at home, but um everyone probably has, I don't know, we've all mentioned things that probably people do have, but go get painter's tape, contact paper,
Yeah.
squirt guns, what else?
Yeah. Or even, do you remember as a kid making out of I guess the lunch paper bags, like puppets? Do you remember
Yes.
making puppets as like these are all
Oh, yeah.
things that you can do at home? And then I know tie dye is a big thing. You do have to order the kits, but I feel like there are ways to maybe you could do it with can you do it with food coloring? Probably not, right? You would have to order the actual kit to color the t-shirt, right?
Fabric dye. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
if your
yeah.
kids are older, my kids, Arthur's 10 and I would have trusted him with this for the last few years. I mean, I think 6 and up, you just make it and we just set it up on the grass, so I don't care if it spills. And then they would just go get socks, old t-shirts. And again, if they're doing it carefully, it takes them a long time to wrap up with all those rubber bands and I don't care how it looks.
Yeah.
The goal is just for them to be engaged with something.
Yeah.
And they you can get gloves if you care about their hands, but I think that's a great idea. I mean, again, you have to plan ahead, but I love tie dye. Um, I was thinking of something. I mean, it makes me so happy. There's so many projects that I love.
I know. It's so fun.
Yeah.
What was your question before, Meg?
Oh, I was going to say, this was another thing I did during COVID. Have any of you done this where you take either M&Ms or Skittles and you put them in the rainbow and then you put water and it's like a craft that they can watch and they set it up, the colors. I know that was
Yeah.
like a big one that Nico is still into as well. That's stuff easy from home.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certain sciencey type experiments that, again, there's one where you put oil and water and then you drop an Alka-Seltzer tablet in it. I mean, that's like magic because I think it makes the oil bubble up through the water. My kids could do that
Yeah.
forever. And, I think that's like, your kids. There's some kids that are going to put everything into their mouth. And I guess technically that's fine with oil, water, Alka-Seltzer. And your kids that are going to immediately dump things out. So you probably won't want that. But there's nothing dangerous about that one. So even with little kids, you could, a 3-year-old knows not to dump something out if it's
She
the right.
she did try to eat the fairy pie they made yesterday
Oh
outside though,
boy.
out of mashed up berries. She said she wanted to taste it.
Was it
Mhm.
good?
They stopped her
Yeah,
because
Okay.
I'm
berries
pretty
make me nervous.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
I feel like we should move on because I'm looking at the clock ticking. I am hoping this is sort of a lame for the listeners. I have reached out to someone who I have followed on Instagram for years. She was a former art teacher. She's unbelievably talented. And so I just DM'd her cold. And I don't know, I'll give her a few days, but I would love to pick her brain. If not, I definitely have friends that do a lot of really wonderful projects with their kids. So the guest is a TBD, but I'm hoping it's going to be this one person. And if it's not, I'm sorry. The guest is still going to be amazing. You guys are going to love him. I have to tell you that when we recorded, I said, I've DM'd this person and I'm really hopeful that I can get a hold of her. And if we don't, I'll find someone great. But I'm so delighted to be able to say that I teased you and here you are. So Cassie, thank you. Thank you for joining the Just for Moms podcast. I'm such a fan. Will you go ahead? So I'm not the only one talking and just quickly introduce yourself. Tell
Sure.
people what you're up to. I know I found you I think we were just talking during COVID. I'm a fan, but why don't you quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Cassie Stevens. I have been or was, I'm currently retired, an elementary art teacher in the Nashville area for 25 years. So I was in one school in Nashville for 5 and last 20 here. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Nashville area. I'm just south of Nashville. I taught in a town called Franklin, which is basically Mayberry. It's a very nice town. And I loved it. And I taught kindergarten through 4th grade, had 30-minute art classes. So I got really efficient with my time and we did it all because I really wanted them to experience everything. So from sewing to weaving to clay to drawing to painting to collage, we covered everything. So I'm familiar with a plethora of art supplies. So I'm happy to share with you some of my favorites and must haves and things like that.
Totally. I mean, I think that's what I was most drawn to, having worked in the New York City public schools. They did have art, but it was limited. I mean, it was like a cart that would follow to the classrooms and it was better than nothing. But I think and then my own kids go to public school up here in Connecticut. And I think I was really drawn by your ability to introduce so many mediums and materials and ways of approaching art. But I just was blown away by I don't know, how diverse your lessons were from both like construction to materials, all of the above. So, all to say, big fan.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
We talked a lot about as parents ways to introduce arts and crafts to our kids that aren't overwhelming to us as parents, because if you're, trying to get dinner on the table and the kids are running around, we don't have quite the time and patience that you might if you have a dedicated classroom, even though I know that you probably have 4 minutes between classes to get it prepped and ready. But what are some tips that you might have for kids that actually don't want to get into art? They're not all that eager. It's intimidating. They don't like the texture, whatever it may be. Do you have any tips for those kids that don't want to jump right in?
So I have a couple of tips. So my first suggestion would be definitely as a parent, sit down and explore that art supply with the child because I think when I was a kid, what always kind of enchanted me about creating was that my dad loved to create. So even if we were sitting and coloring together in a coloring book or drawing together or getting like a model airplane kind of kit. It was just fun to see an adult be as excited to create and learn, because if you're learning along with them, you're discovering things together. And then you get to remove yourself from being like the teacher all the time and no, this is what you want to do. No, you're going to mix these colors together. But if you're both exploring it together, I think that it's going to mean a lot more to the child. And if you have a kid who's just like, I don't like art, they just haven't met the art that they like yet. So maybe they had an art class and they just didn't enjoy whatever supply or didn't feel successful. And so they just haven't met the one that they like or feel comfortable with. So that's why when I teach, I love to teach like a massive gamut of art supplies so that the kids who feel not super confident with drawing suddenly they discover that they're really good at something like weaving. Boys, especially, are excellent weavers. They're very methodical. They love that it's like it makes sense. It's very over under. This is
Sure.
how you do it. And yeah, it just in their brain, it makes a lot of sense. So I just feel like exposing a child to more, not too much though, because if you
Sure.
give them like, here's all the art supplies, suddenly it's just, yeah, overwhelming. So
Yeah.
maybe even just giving them like 5 or $10. I know places like the Dollar Tree actually have quite the nice craft section, and just let them select the art supply. Just see what they're drawn to and then go from there. And maybe they'll love it, and maybe they're just like, let's try something else.
Right.
But make sure they spend some time actually working with that supply so that way they don't become like a butterfly, just go from one supply to the next, never really diving in and enjoying it. So those are my tips, working along with them and then just seeing where their creativity takes them, what supplies they might be drawn to.
I love that. I also found that kids are funny. I think they sometimes have this, whether it's perceived or whether it is somehow subconscious, this expectation of what the product needs to look like. They're either getting it from our nonverbals or they're getting it from their own experience. And they put a lot of pressure on themselves. And so I found that if I could create projects that were like, this is meant to be messy, there's no right or wrong way to do it. Just go have fun with the process. I mean, even as adult, the process for me is the most fun part. But that was something that I was always surprised at how much pressure my little ones put on themselves to like get it right. And it's like, no, no, no. That's not art.
Well, and a lot of the supplies, it's presented in a kit, and then there's the finished product on the box of the kit, and I tend not to love those because for that very reason. Or even when you look at the box of like, let's say a box of modeling clay, it's gonna have all these little examples that a literal adult made.
Right.
You know? And then the kids are just like, wait a minute. I remember I had a drawing book, a how to draw book when I was a kid, and it was how to draw dogs. And I loved this book, but it was like a how to draw dogs for like a 45-year-old artist. You know, there
Yeah,
was,
forget it.
I just looked at the pictures, but I was like, but how do I draw a dog? You know? So picking something that's more on their level, and even sometimes doing projects that might to you or even to them seem a little bit below their level can be good because then that gives them the confidence, you know, I can do this, even if it felt like, oh yeah, anybody, you know what I mean? That's a little
Right.
babyish. Just let them go for it because then that confidence will, give them the confidence to continue and to keep creating.
Totally. We talked a little bit about like must-haves for crafting. What are some of your must-haves? You're so clever at the materials you bring in. What are some of your favorites?
Well, okay, so I'm gonna divide this into 3 categories. So, must-haves that are not super messy and short time frame. So, if you're cooking dinner and you don't want them to get out a bunch of stuff, but you do want them to sit and create, then and I like to keep things in bins, like
Mhm.
clear plastic bins, so that way it's easy for them to see, they know where the supplies can be found. So even just, I mean, coloring and coloring books, I think are important. I used to, as an art teacher, kind of look down on them because I was just like, anybody. But my kids love them and it's good for them. They're fine motor. You know, so many of our young people are more familiar with a phone than they are with a crayon or a pencil. So I think just coloring is very soothing and relaxing and great for their hand muscles. So don't ever feel like it's just a coloring book or whatever. No, it's good for them. So that could be kept in a bin with some markers, and then maybe it can be leveled up to something a little bit more time lengthwise and a little bit more messy. Modeling clay is excellent because it really does exercise their hands. It comes in tons of different colors. It's not as messy as something like a Play-Doh, and it also doesn't dry out. So if it's left out, it's not completely ruined. That's great. Watercolor paint is fabulous also. You just got the little pan, you just need the water cup and a brush and you're good to go. And then in like the next level up can be more of supplies that are great for outside, so more of that like temper paint, that like really thick, juicy paint, which is great. Just even getting them like a big canvas, you can get them, wait for the coupon to come out and you can get a nice big canvas and some of that thick paint, some big brushes, put them outside in the yard, wherever, and just let them go to town and have a great time with that. So I feel like there's different levels of it. I think a lot of us think, oh, art supplies, it's going to be a messy, it's going to be too much trouble. Break it down into like these 3 levels and time frame and mess wise, and I think you'll be set.
Yeah, I love that. And then my last question, and then I'll let you go. Everyone should go check out your Instagram. It sounds like you have YouTube. I mean, you're everywhere, but your Instagram is how I found you. And it's Cassie_Stevens. Is that right?
Yes. Cassie
Okay.
underscore Stevens. Yep. With a Z at the end because somebody else had my name. Y'all know how it goes.
I do know how it goes. So people should just go there because there's just like a wealth of information. But do you have a couple of projects or crafts that you keep coming back to you every year that you've done that you just are like your gold standard? These are the favorite things that I've done with kids that you want to share?
Yes. So kids love to make things that are functional. Especially boys, they like
Mhm.
to understand, why am I making this? Girls, we just love to make pretty things. It doesn't
It's
matter
true.
why. We're just good to do that. But boys, they like to have something that does something. So even if you're using something like an air dry clay, they could make a pencil holder or it can hold something. This is going to have a job. Kids, like I said, love weaving. On my blog, I have a how to weave a pouch, which kids really love to make in my room because they could keep their phone in it and things like that. Also, kids love experimenting and exploring. So one thing I would recommend is Dollar Tree is my favorite place. Go to the Dollar Tree, get a large pizza pan, one of those metal pans. Kids can paint in those pans with the thick temper paint, lay a paper on top and pull a print.
Oh,
And
cool.
it's really fun to explore color mixing. And they will be doing that for a long time. They'll just sit there and get them a big old pad of paper, some paint, and just let them have fun with pulling different kinds of prints. So those are kind of like the things
Love
that I
it.
recommend, things that kids just can make something and keep it and understand what the purpose of it is for. And yeah, I have tons of videos on my YouTube channel, which is my name, Cassie Stevens, no Z on that one.
That pizza pan, my kids would go ham with that, and they're old enough that they could get the paint and do it all on their own, but I love that. There's an alchemy to prints, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the great thing is it has a little lip.
Yeah.
And so it helps to capture the paint and the mess. That was like my first activity I would always do with kindergarten on those like first weeks of school. Just explore paint, go to town, and you don't have to worry about there's a lot of artwork that results, which is great, but you don't have to worry about a lot of mess.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us, Cassie. I'm delighted that I got in touch with you through the magic of social media, and I think you're the best. So I am delighted that you could join us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And we're back. Who has a pit and a peak they want to start with? Callie, why don't you go first?
Mine is a peak. And so we're almost 2 weeks into our summer break now. And I think I maybe shared in one of the last episodes that I wasn't really sure how it was going to go because our kids were mostly going to be home. And I do have childcare 3 days a week, but it's still in the home and I work in the home and my husband works in the home. And I was a little nervous about the dynamic of all of that. But so far, we're only 2 weeks in. It's been going great. My kids are having like the summer of their life, just doing like we've got lemonade stands and like the mini pool and just like all of the fun stuff, and it's been great. And I've been part of some of it and not part of some of it, so I was quite nervous about how it was gonna go, but so far it's going really good.
Yeah, I'm not there yet, but
No.
It's different ages. I'm not driving. If I were doing what you were doing and driving kids all around, I mean, like today I had to do a little because I had one at camp and then one with a doctor's appointment, and then I have to go pick up from the camp, and that's a little less fun for me. So
I mean, I will say I have another child that has since made a summer bucket list. Hers has 50 items, and I haven't looked at it. I
whoa,
like the
that's a lot.
premise. That's a lot. One thing that she's really wanting to do, and again, I feel like I'm such a buzzkill. She wants to have an ice cream sale. And I was like, it's all going to
So
melt. Ice
yeah,
cream is so
so
expensive to begin with. Like, who
uh-huh.
are you doing this with? Like lemonade is fine. Like, you can go, I will
Well,
buy you
Yeah, I didn't even want to do. I mean, my children are not old enough that they can sit out at the road and do the lemonade stand by themselves. And like, I don't want to sit out there and do that. So I was like, that sounds like a really fun thing to do when the
with your sitter.
babysitter is here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And thank God she was like all on board with it. And they had the time of their, in the neighborhood we live in is a lot of older people. So like, he was basically famous. People were
So cute.
posting it on their Facebook pages. Like it was, I mean, he just had himself a day and I
Yeah.
didn't have to be part of it. I
No.
can't say I would be saying the same thing if that were I picked other activities for me to
Right.
do.
And I would not be involved. She's the kid who plans, and she has like maps and lists, and I'm like, this is so great. Like, I
Yeah.
want to applaud your effort. And then I also am like, I'm 50 years old and here are some concerns. And like, how do I present this to her in a way that doesn't make her be like, oh,
Yes.
and so I'm sort of leaning, the way we've landed is I recently got a Ninja Creamy, which is the
Yep.
kids love. It's a stupid appliance. I need to
Yep.
figure out why it's not a stupid appliance. The kids are into it.
Yeah.
And so she's mixed up. We've decided she will make the ice cream. So that seems fine. So
Okay.
she's planned out a couple of recipes. You have to let the stuff freeze for 24 hours before you can even put it in the creamy. So that's stupid if you ask me, but she's done it. So today we're going to taste and see. And then I don't know, I'll get her a thing of like really small sugar cones, and maybe I'll even be extra and have her like pre-scoop the ice cream so she can just have it in like frozen little ice cream balls that she can just like plop onto a cone when people. My worry is that 5 people drive up and down our street and they may not be in the mood to just like rock an ice cream cone.
Right.
And
Yeah.
there's just she was like, "Well, I'll get ice." And I was like, "A bag of ice is not going to keep ice cream."
No.
No.
I
There's a
know.
lot of logistics. It sounds like a
I
learning
know.
experience.
Yes. So
Mhm.
I'm like, how can I make this a learning experience that doesn't involve me going to Stop and Shop and spending $50 on
Ice cream.
Yeah.
ice cream
Yeah.
and cones?
You're keeping it cold. I'm thinking same thing with snow cones. Same thing. How do you keep it cold unless you have a freezer or
A
All this,
plug-in freezer.
like
this
in
all
your
just hurts my brain.
in your
Yeah.
yard?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's a TBD. I mean, that leads into my pit, which is just like the house is a mess. I feel like the life is like we have not reached the same point of comfort that you're at, Callie. We've only had a day or two with everyone home trying to figure it out, but it's just I'm not where you are quite yet. So that's my pit.
You'll get there.
Yeah.
Do you have a pit or a peak, Megan?
I have a peak.
Yay.
So I've been talking about this since February, and I finally went and did it. I got my new phone.
Oh my God.
I
And
was like,
what do you
what is
think?
I like it. I mean, I don't like. I'm not like, oh my gosh, but it was needed. My battery life was awful. My storage was like at its like I've had the other phone for 2.5 years, and I do my work on this, so so it's done now. I feel good about it. I don't know what took me so long. It's just like leaving your phone there, and passwords still aren't set up. This isn't, but it's been a few days, like you. I feel like, same thing. Well, I'll get there. Yeah, it's a peak, but it's like yeah,
Yeah.
if that makes
They've
sense.
gotten so much better. I remember when you would originally get a phone and they would like transfer your data, they would transfer the photos and like maybe your email, but then so much was lost. Now it really is transferring kind of everything.
Yes.
Like maybe your cache is cleared, but I mean, there's always the shit you forget about, but it's
Yeah.
gotten so much better.
One last thing. So the only thing I didn't have time for, which I still need to do, because I have to mail in the old phone. I still didn't download all my drafts from my other phone from Instagram and TikTok from 2.5 years. So now I have to download them on the other phone and then text them to myself, or what's the other feature? AirDrop.
AirDrop. Oh, right. Because
Have
they
them.
once you transfer all the, like you have to get them out of the app.
And I never took the time to do that before I went. So the guy's like, this is what you have to do. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. We just got to do the new phone because again, the battery life, and then I couldn't update, when you can't do the updates, it's time. So yes,
That's exciting.
thank you.
Congrats.
It is.
Thank you. I'll stop
Caitlin.
talking about it now.
No, we love it. We like a good peak. What is yours, Caitlin?
Mine's it's a pit peak. My pit is I'm like you, Charlotte. It's day 2 of summer vacation, and I'm ready to just run away from home. I mean, the first day my middle child was just complaining that this is the worst summer vacation ever, and I'm like, it's 10 o'clock in
2
the
days
morning.
in.
Seriously. And my older daughter's like, well, we're going to be in Florida next week, so just you just got to get through this week. And she's like, it'll be terrible there too. And I just sitting in the other room thinking, oh my gosh. So that's my pit. But my peak is we're going away on Sunday. It's with cousins and grandparents and aunts and uncles. And I'm hoping everyone wants to hang out with my children so I don't have to for 7 days. Yes.
I hope that for you.
Thank you.
I know. I was thinking ahead to our beach week, which again, it's in the beginning of August, but I don't, like it's here quickly. I was plugging in like anyway, and usually we're there with my sister and her kids. This summer, the schedules didn't work out, so we're just going to be there with us. So it'll feel a little different to my kids, but they're also old enough and they can walk to the house back and forth. And so it's like, I am just going to sit and read books. Like we've graduated to the phase of like, I'm not going to plan for you people. Like, so I was like, what books do I get? That's what's carrying me through.
Yeah.
I don't know who's going to watch our dogs, but that's another issue. All right, everyone. Well, I think we should try to focus before this airs, which I believe is early July. We will try to get organized so that you can go on to our Instagram page and see some of these activities. I know sometimes when you're hearing about arts and crafts, it's easier said than done to picture it, but we will maybe think about what we've talked about and reshare content or do some of these with our kids just so you can see what we are talking about. So this is also my way of reminding all of us, how do we remember? We'll figure it out.
I have
Yeah.
a lot saved on my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, mine were all in this like
Same.
quarantine section.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, go to look at our social media over for the next week and you'll see a lot of these there. And then as always, we love hearing from you guys. Some of our best show ideas have come from you all, so keep them coming. A lot of great comments on YouTube, social media. You can always go to our website and email us directly, but we really appreciate you guys. You are amazing, and every day you remind us of how terrific you are. So thank you. And see.